Okay, so the purpose of this video is to show you how I like to take a couple of my favorite mobility and activation exercises, and if you're up to it, add some progression so that we can then take these sorts of movements and make them a little bit more metabolically taxing so that you get more of a training effect. So rather than just going for a run, for example, if we can take some movements that are going to increase the way that our body functions and then start to work on making them a little bit more difficult so we get a bit more of a cardio response, well, we're not only improving our fitness, but we're also improving the way that we move. So first things first, we see if we can cover the basics. Now the first one is going to be a tabletop. So once again, just like we did in previous videos, we think about our feet, how we're going to grip into the floor and generate tension. I don't want my hamstrings to just be loose, my glutes to just be loose when I begin. I want to set tension into the ground and then come up. So I'm going to pull into the floor and brace, bring my hips right up and get that full extension through the hips. Now if you find that you've got a lot of tension in your hips, which a lot of us do, especially if we sit down for our careers or if we're just lazy, if you find you can't get up all the way, if we're getting to about here, well, we're not going to go on to the progression. We're going to work on getting that full extension happening first, which would conveniently bring me into the next drill we're going to do, which is a Spider-Man lunge. So from here, I'm going to get one foot out in front, like you're going to propose, hands to the floor, and I want this arm to be able to encourage this hip out. And then from here, I'm going to get some length in the back leg. The chest comes down the hip comes down towards the floor while the chest comes up. Head position is important here because your body's going to follow what your head's doing. So if you're looking down at the floor, the chances are you're not going to get the optimal position. If you can bring your chest and your head in an upward direction, that's where we want to be. If I turn onto this angle, this is one of the few times where I encourage my clients to actually bring themselves into a hyperextended position. Now, again, it sounds like a bit of a no-no, but in a controlled environment, it's okay. Lifting heavy weights, if you're moving dynamically, you probably want to avoid it. From here, I'm purposely, if this is the natural neutral spine position for me, I'm actually going to take it further and hyperextend and get my head and chest up into that position. So obviously I'm getting a big stretch through my hip here. So if your tabletop is reluctant to get up to this position, the Spider-Man lunge, and among other things, could help get you that dexterity you need to be able to get up there. Now, assuming that you can do those two things, we're going to work towards progressions that are going to combine them. So the next one, we're going to come up and hold that position, drop one ankle over, and you'll see if I turn this way, flatten out that knee, and I want to bring that down to a touch, and then all the way up. Now, if you have a hard time getting that into full extension, we're probably not going to go into the next progression. So from here, we get a touch, I'm generating tension into the floor, we get up to full extension, no problem at all. So if we can do that on both hips, down and touch, full extension, and if we're comfortable in this Spider-Man lunge on both sides, the next progression from the Spider-Man lunge is a Spider-Man lunge to stand. So from here, I'm in this position, my head and chest is up, I'm gripping the floor with this foot. Remember, our feet are our new hands. So I'm gripping the floor and pulling towards me. This hamstring's firing. So we only want to do this exercise if we can maintain this position through our spine as I stand. So if I'm in this position, if you're not ready to do this, what you'll commonly see is you're going to use muscles that are just designed to do the stabilizing of your spine to pull you into position. We don't want to do that. We don't want this. I don't want to come up and then be straightening myself up. So ideally, if you're up for all these progressions from this position, head and chest up, down on the other side, head and chest up, and we've also got our single leg tabletop. So from the top position down to a touch, full extension at the top, transfer over to the other side, down. If we can combine those four things, if we think of those individually, we're then going to put them into a little circuit, if you like, and if we do this for a sustained period of time, that's how we're going to get our training effect. So what I'm talking about is if I'm starting in this position here, starting up from the top, single leg on one side, down and touch, single leg on the other, you're going to find constantly when you do this, your knee's going to try and come up to this position. You want to keep it down nice and flat. From there, Spider-Man lunge to stand, Spider-Man lunge to stand. And then we just continue to roll through that. Down to a touch and up. Down to a touch and up. Spider-Man lunge to stand. Spider-Man lunge to stand. Don't be preoccupied with what position you come down in. It doesn't matter. All that matters is that these 4 individual movements are all done well. Up. Up. Pull. Pull. If you got any questions about these things, hit me up. I've got Joint Preservation Training, YouTube, Instagram and Facebook. If you can't quite do the basics, just work on those and progress your way up. Don't be doing single legs that look like this and this, and even more importantly, don't be doing a Spider-Man lunge to stand that looks like this. Work on the basics and go up from there.